there's a scenario in which the rich countries have the benefits and the big advantage, and that scenario is a possible one. But there's another scenario which is quite possible. I would say the chances are 49% that the scenario that I'm about to tell you will happen, and that is that suppose we don't get onto a sustainable economy in the next several decades, we failed, and we're no longer able to support a first world society, and we relapse. We have to relapse to the Stone Age. Who is going to be able to master the art of living in the Stone Age? Not Americans, not Europeans, not Japanese. The people who will master life in the Stone Age are the people who have experience of it within their lifetimes or their grandparents' lifetime. New Guineans, and here in Brazil, Amazonian Native Americans who've been using stone tools relatively recently. One may say, this is a far-out scenario, why worry about it? Well, the fact is that there is substantial risk that our ability to support a complex first world metal tool-based society is not going to survive beyond a few decades. And if so, it doesn't mean that everybody in the world is going to be dead. If we have a nuclear holocaust, yes, everybody in the world will be dead. But if we fail to develop a sustainable economy, the human species is not going to go extinct. Those humans who survive will be my New Guinea friends. One of my New Guinea friends made the last trip to the stone quarry in the late 1970s. There are still stone tools around there. My New Guinea friends still know how to farm the 79 varieties of sweet potatoes. I don't have the faintest idea how to farm sweet potatoes. In the United States, 98% of Americans are not farmers, 2% of Americans are farmers, but in New Guinea until recently, 100% of people were farmers. So an alternative scenario, a worst case scenario is that within several decades, it's not the rich countries that will have the benefits, it's the poor countries, namely the poor countries that most recently were operating in the Stone Age.
Very interesting.
Maybe I'll just comment on that one of the features of history is often that history is terribly unfair. And it often happens in history that the rich cause problems that then the poor pay for. And the rich are maybe hurt a little, but they are in the position to survive it better. Like we saw in the financial crisis, that the bankers who caused much of the crisis, they were least hurt by it. And people in far off places that had nothing to do with the responsibility, they paid the most. Now, I think that in a catastrophic scenario like that, then yes, there will be a huge advantage to people who are, in a way, closest to the Stone Age. But the vast majority of poor people in developing countries are not these tribal societies, which still have the survival skills. They are the people who work, say, in the textile mills. And they never farmed. They don't know how to produce textile. They don't know how to produce stone tool. They know how to drive 2 hours in a bus to some polluted factory and work there for 10, 12 hours and then take the bus back home. And in case of a major crisis, they are likely to suffer even more than the rich people, say, in San Francisco or in London. And except in the case of a really extreme, like nuclear war, one frightening scenario, one problem, is that a major crisis will only accelerate dangerous technological developments, like we saw in the 2 world wars, that as long as things are relatively calm, people don't like to take risks with extreme technologies. But if, say, we don't get a handle over the climate crisis and things deteriorate rapidly, this will cause people to look for extreme solutions. And therefore, I think that a climate crisis will not slow down developments in AI and biotechnology. It is likely only to accelerate them and to cause people to to give up the precautions. Oh, we are facing existential crisis anyway. So yes, it's very dangerous to start experimenting in genetic engineering. It's very dangerous to develop these new super AI, but we are in a crisis, so we have to do it. And I think part of the reason why elites in the world today are not doing enough to combat the climate crisis, the ecological crisis, is that either consciously or at least subconsciously in the back of their mind, they say, yes, that's a big problem, but not for us. When the flood comes, we will build a technological ark. Yes, the poor people in the favelas, they will suffer, but not us. We will probably have the resources and the technological expertise to protect ourselves from the worst outcomes. And this is why the elites are not as alarmed as they should be. All over the world, there is now a growing disbelief or less faith in democracy. But in the long run, the huge advantage of democracy is its flexibility. That sometimes authoritarian regimes, they can make quicker decisions because you need to compromise less. You need to consult less with different groups and different people. So it seems that they can make things work faster. But the big problem of authoritarian regimes is that when they make mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes, all regimes, all people, all parties make mistakes. In a democracy, when you make a mistake, it's easier to acknowledge it. Even if the ruling party doesn't acknowledge it, the citizenry can replace them, so you can change course. In authoritarian regimes, usually, when the regime makes a mistake, it never acknowledges it. It blames it, either on enemies outside or traitors within. And the conclusion the regime reaches is that it needs even more power. Because yes, we promised wonderful things, we didn't accomplish them, not because we made a mistake, but because there was traitors and enemies. So the solution is to give us even more power. And if, again, the things still don't improve, again they will say it's because the traitors are really, really powerful. So we need even more power. And we know from history where this is leading. So no matter what the difficulties are, it's very important to remember this crucial advantage of democracy, that it is better in acknowledging its mistakes and trying something else. And that usually is worth all the downsides of the democratic regimes.